Can you tell us about your history with zone defenses?
Well, it's pretty easy. About a month ago, decided that our man-to-man defense was not where it needed to be, and we thought we had some potential to be a good zone team. So my first phone call was to Ralph Willard, who was a friend of mine for many, many years. He was an assistant coach for Rick Pitino, both in the NBA and at the college level, a head coach at Western Kentucky, Pittsburgh, and Holy Cross, and he played a matchup zone. So Ralph now resides in Naples, Florida, retired, and he drove over and spent the day with us. And we talked all about the different things that you can do out of a zone defense. And then the former assistant coach at Syracuse, Bernie Fine, lives in Fort Lauderdale, and I ran into him at a function and started quizzing him about the Syracuse zone and things he learned. And so he came down and spent a morning with us, my staff and I. And beyond that, it's just my coaches working with the players, trying to get them to do some things that work defensively, whether you're playing man or zone. Help principles. And the guys have done a good job of listening and learning.
What was your history with the zone before this season? How many years have you had where you went mostly zone?
None.
None. This is the first time.
In fact, I can't remember which game it was, but it's the first time in my 40 years that any team that a coach played zone the entire game.
And what's been your resistance to it over the years?
Oh, it's not resistance. It's just what you know and what you're comfortable with. When I was in high school, we played all man-to-man. We pressed full court. I got to Davidson College, worked for Terry Holland. He was a man-to-man coach. I one time tried to talk him into playing zone. He wouldn't listen. And finally, he did listen, and we got crushed by Syracuse. He never listened again.
So you're learning with your players a little bit on this?
Oh, yeah, very much so.
What is it that you saw in the players that you thought this is better for them?
I saw us giving up a lot of easy baskets in our man-to-man and decided, well, doesn't look like this is going to be our bread and butter defense. So it was kind of out of necessity.
Ryan was mentioning the length and athleticism. I mean, is that something else you said? That
well, yeah, that's one of the adjustments we made as well. We put Davon Reed into the starting lineup to make the zone a little bit more effective, thinking that size might be a factor. But what we did notice is in our man-to-man defense, we weren't helping each other much. When we do the shell drill, which works versus man or zone, in fact, if you're watching it, it looks like zone, we noticed the guys did a much better job of helping. So it just created in my mind a secondary defense that might help us. But now it's become our primary defense.
You mentioned before that you were concerned about, well, not concerned, but the three-point defense, getting your three-point defense. How do you see how that's developing, number one, and number two, what Florida State did last night? How big is that going to be in this game?
Well, in league play, we're third in the league in defending the three-point shot. And some of that has to do with just the personnel of the other team. Syracuse and North Carolina, both really big teams, so they work the ball inside more. They don't shoot as many threes. We defended Virginia Tech pretty well for a while with the zone, but we had to switch because of their ability to make three-pointers against the zone. Now we'll have to see on Wednesday night, how Florida State shoots it. Kids don't shoot the ball the same way every night. No, and so we'll have to make game adjustments. If they're shooting it like they did against Maryland, no one can beat them.
What did you think of that game last night?
They were awesome.
Did it surprise you? I mean, that
No,
they were able to hit that many threes in a row? And
No, I as I said, I don't think kids shoot the ball the same way every night. Some nights they've got it going and they don't miss. Other nights they can't make. It's the same from the foul line. How do you explain the wide range of free throw percentages from game to game? It's different.
The idea that a zone defense can't be effective against a team that shoots well from outside, is that wrong,
Oh,
you think?
no. There's a guy named Dick DeVinzio. I think he's passed away, actually. He was an All-American at Duke in my era. Played at Duke from 67 to 71. When he was finished playing, he did a lot of teaching in basketball and wrote a book called Stuff, S-T-U-F-F, All Good Players Should Know. And in the book, he explains, he said, there's never been a coach to choose the wrong defense. But the players don't always play the defense well, like the coach would like. So that's kind of where we are. We chose man-to-man. That didn't work so good. We're choosing zone now. And our players have adapted to that defense better. So we're going to play it more.
Can you talk about what it means to beat North Carolina 4 times in a row? When you came here, you said one of the reasons
It means you're in rare air.
But you came here because, you said you wanted to test yourself as a coach against ACC coaches and the Roy Williams and Mike Krzyzewskis and all that. So, can you just talk about how big it is? That
Yeah, I remember speaking to my son Jay about me, the possibility of me accepting the job at Miami, and he was like, I can't believe you're even hesitating. You know how much fun it would be to go to Duke and Carolina and coach there? And I said, no, it's only fun if you can win. And so, that was my mindset. All this is about winning, trying to prepare your team to be the best it can be. But in the end, the enjoyment really comes from the satisfaction that you knew you played really, really well and beat a really good team.
What do you think it did for your team, that win? Because you said Syracuse.
I think we'll find out on Wednesday. I told you, players and teams, they don't play the same way every night. And we're not playing against the same kind of defense. Syracuse played 2-3 zone. Carolina was scrambling and trapping us all over the place. Florida State plays very aggressive man-to-man. So we'll see how we do.
We didn't know much about this team. What have you found out about this team in the last month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks?
My team?
Yeah.
Well, I would say the first thing is Garius Adams has overcome the rust that he was experiencing in November and December. And I honestly felt like eventually he'd get to this point, but he hadn't played in 2 years. And you think, well, it's still basketball, it's the same. No, guys have to get comfortable and confident. And second, we've got guys in different roles, and they had to learn those roles. Ryan Brown, he was our 6th, 7th man last year. Now he's our leading scorer and leading rebound. So that's different. When you come in off the bench, you mess up a few times, you miss a few shots, you're coming out. Now, you mess up a few times, I'm calling a timeout and say, hey, would you play a little better, please?
You know about Eric Swoop the other night, what he did?
He was awesome. It's great. Eric is the absolute best team player you could ever ask for. He does everything a coach would want a player to do. He's a great team leader. He is the hardest worker in the weight room, on the court, defensively, rebounding. But he's an awkward size. He's 6'5", and he's mostly a inside guy. And I've had players that are undersized, but normally the undersized guys are your most skilled players. So it's been a major challenge for me to figure out how I can best utilize Eric. But he's been practicing so well and playing very well when he's gotten into the game. I just decided before the Carolina game to give him more extended minutes.
Coach, how different is the rivalry against Florida State? You mentioned Duke and North Carolina, obviously, in basketball in the ACC, but Do you notice a little difference when it's Florida State, Miami, even in basketball?
Oh, I think the Florida State Miami rivalry is very similar to the Duke Carolina rivalry. We're in state, we compete for everything: students, media attention, the best student athletes we can both get. So it's a great rivalry. I think around the state, everybody knows it as a football rivalry. But for a student athlete at both schools, it's really whatever team is playing, you want to beat your rival.
How well do you know Leonard? You know, he's very beloved still around here and always gets a big cheer and everything for all that he did for this program. Can you talk about him as a coach? And
I've known Leonard since he was an assistant coach at Kentucky, and we were competing against each other to get the services of Ralph Sampson. And we were both on the Nike trips and stuff, so we've gotten to know each other quite well. Our wives know each other, and I have the utmost respect for him and the job he did here at Miami and the job he's doing at Florida State.
What swung the deal for Ralph Sampson?
I'm sorry?
What swung the deal for Ralph Sampson going to Virginia rather than...
Yeah, well, it wasn't me. Really, what swung the deal was Terry Holland's relationship with Ralph's mom and her wanting her son to stay close to home, I think.
Jim, with losing so many players off last year's team, then losing DeAndre before the season, not having 2 football walk-ons that you thought maybe a few months ago you'd have, how worried were you about depth right before the season, and have those concerns been allayed at all?
Well, I wouldn't say I worry about it. I plan on what we have. You know, if you have 9 guys, you have 9 guys, and you plan on playing those 9, and you put your game plan together for those. If we had a deeper bench, we might adjust our strategy a little bit. But the guys are learning. It's a fun group to be around. I've really enjoyed their personalities on and off the court. But for some of them, this is a brand new experience. I talked to James Kelly. I asked him about, going to Syracuse. He said, I never even dreamed about playing in an environment like that. And in Carolina, so many people. It was really, really exciting for him. And for some of our freshmen, Manu, he said, I came here for this reason. I wanted to experience college basketball, American college basketball. So it's exciting, it's new, and it's fun for all of us. But we do want to play well. And I think the guys feel like they played well at Syracuse, not quite well enough to win. Played well at Carolina, but were able to sustain our efforts and finish the game strong and win that game. But we've only played 3 conference games. It's a long race.
what kind of crowd are you expecting?
I think the place will be. Yeah, I think the place will be packed and rocking. My coaching staff and players and I are going dorm storming after practice today. Going to take a group of the players over to the freshman dorms and drum up support and let them know how much we appreciate having a large student turnout at the home games.
Before you mentioned you might have a meeting with Corn Elder today. Did you have that meeting? Is there any
No, I told him after classes, so he's not quite done with classes yet.
Jim, have these last 2 games raised your expectations of what this team can accomplish this year?
No, my expectations are always the same. I tell them, the whole concept is not just about basketball. It's about learning the skills of life. And that is, number one, you've got to have a great attitude. No matter what the circumstances, you've got to keep things positive. Second, you've got to make a total and unconditional commitment to being the best that you can be, whether that's in the classroom or on the court. And lastly, you have to learn how to behave properly on and off the court. And I think you can see, there are circumstances that you can look at right now, big news about what Dennis Rodman did. Right? I would like to think that our players are great ambassadors for the university and represent all that's good about the University of Miami.
Are you a good defensive team yet?
I think we've improved dramatically. I think there's still a lot of room for improvement. We're going to face a number of different kinds of offensive teams. Come Wednesday night, very, very big team, similar to Syracuse, but yet different in their offensive approach. So we'll have to see, I think we'll know by the end of January what kind of defensive team we have. And if we are really good, that'll give us a chance to win a bunch of games in February.
Where are you right now? And I know you keep up with all the stats in scoring, defense, and isn't your defensive numbers have gone up, right?
We're 27th or 28th today in points per possession, which is really the main one, because there are categories that influence your how good your field goal percentage defense is. So if you were just looking at our field goal percentage defense, you could be misled. And by that I mean, I've had teams, not this year, but I've had teams in the past that the opponent shot almost 50% with some of my best teams defensively. You say, well, how is that possible? Because we pressed and we forced turnovers, and they didn't get many shots against us. If they got through the pressure, they shot a good percentage, but we forced over 20 turnovers a game. And so on their points per possession, they weren't very good. On their field goal percentage, they were very, very good. So right now, our points per possession, we're in the top 30 teams in the country.
What do you typically need to be ranked number one in that category? What's a great number?
Because it's based on the whole country, it can't be, well, I guess the answer specifically is 1 point per possession. Anything above that, you're not going to be in the top 50.
Okay.
So if you can get your points per possession down to 0.9 or 0.85, I think last year the team that won it was Louisville. They were 0.82.
Okay. What are you guys right now?
I don't know off the top of my head. I just know we're
Around one?
Well, we're below 1.
Below one.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys are last in the country in tempo. Is that,
We are?
yeah, according to Pomeroy, does that please you, or would you like to
Oh, no,
stay
it's
there?
nothing to do with it. Our tempo is going to be based on two things. One, we're playing teams that are very good defensively. Syracuse, for example. But you can't come down the floor and take a quick shot against them, or you're just playing into their hands. North Carolina, they're also one of the best teams in the country defensively. Florida State, they're one of the best teams. Clemson, one of the best teams. Virginia, one of the best teams. You got a lot of teams in this league that play great defense. You come down the floor and don't get a fast break layup or a wide open three, you better move the ball. It's very similar to football in that regard in terms of time of possession. If your time of possession in football is substantially more than the opponent's, you're probably in very good shape because their defense is constantly on the court. And the reverse of that is because we're playing good defense, the opponent is having to take more and more time. They'd like to shoot it quicker, but they can't get a good shot that quickly. So now that both teams are playing great defense, the scoring is very, very naturally lower.
We see flashes from Ja'Carri, big rebounding game at UNC last week. How close is he now to what you think his ceiling is, or what you've been capable of doing?
He's far away from where we'd like him to be. I think he's getting better, but there's so many little things right now that he can do in practice and drills that he can't correlate to game action. Once he does, once he figures that out, he's going to be far superior than he is today.
Are those things more on the offensive end?
Offensive end,
Right, yeah.
You mentioned turnovers a while ago. The zone defense, I mean, is it going to, do you like to see to get turnovers out of it? Is it more important to force teams out of their comfort zone so they're not getting the shots they want, batting balls away?
Right.
What do you see?
Defense is only about one thing: stopping the opponent from putting the ball in the basket. You can do it a lot of different ways. The zone, most of the time, does not force a lot of turnovers. Pressure defenses normally do. Trapping defenses normally force turnovers. the difference between, I'll say, where we are right now and where Syracuse is, Syracuse's zone does force turnovers. Their players are very, very active in that zone. And would we like to be able to do that as well? And the answer is yes, very much so. But we're not there now.
What's your offensive points per possession?
Anybody have any other questions?
Not where you want it to be, I would assume.
No, we don't shoot the ball at a high enough rate. We don't force a lot of turnovers, so we don't get a lot of easy baskets in transition. We've got a freshman running the point, trying to reduce the number of mistakes, freshman mistakes that a guy would make, so we've become a lot more conservative this year. Like I told Bruce Pearl, who did the game the other night, that if the game gets in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, we cannot beat Carolina at their game. They're one of the best scoring teams and have been for 50 years. But if the game is in the 50s or 60s, that we have a chance to win. So you just have to know the strengths of your program. Last year, I wanted the game in the 90s because we were so proficient offensively. 5 guys in double figures, Reggie Johnson and Ryan Brown coming in off the bench who could both score. And that's a heck of an offensive team. But this year, our leading returning scorer averaged 6. It's not the kind of team you want to get out there and try to get 80.
Did you say your goal was earlier in some press conference? Did you say 75?
75 is our goal every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't mean we have the capability of reaching that goal every year. Last year we did. But this year, would I like to have that? Did I tell the players that was our goal? Yeah. But you have to be smart in knowing that what you're capable of doing, what you're not capable of doing. I'd like Tanya Jakiri to be averaging 15 points, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks, 2 steals. But right now that's not happening. But he is playing better and he is improving, so maybe one day he will get there.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thanks.